You are listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Welcome back to I Am Refocused Radio. Once again, we are here today. And man, if you love boxing, just wait, because we have a story for you guys. We have a true honor talking to Gavin Lance Topp. He is a man who knows a little bit about fighting, man, both in and outside the ring. He has an amazing story. He has an amazing career, but he has an amazing platform. He is someone who serves and pays it forward. He began his boxing journey with 19 amateur fights, went on to win and defend the Australian junior middleweight title, and he's climbed his ranks to fight in an international stage, including world title eliminator bout in Germany. At his peak, he has ranked 12th in the world. But that story doesn't stop there. That's just a comma, because when it comes to hanging up his gloves in 2009, he founded the Fight Like a Pro. And he also written a book that we're going to dive into later in the show. Is something that I appreciate our artists having a chance to learn about. Is Rite of Passage. It's something that it will make you a stronger person. It'll be something that'll help you stay more grounded, but it'll be just a chapter into what he's been able to do outside of his boxing career. Outside the program, he has made a major transformation with over 3,000 men to help them not to become stronger husbands and fathers, but to be actual true leaders. And when it comes to his book, A Rite of Passage for the Modern Man, he is still impacting readers worldwide. So I know that's a little lengthy introduction, but I had to do justice. Not too many times you get a powerful guest like this. So I want to say to you, Gavin, thank you for your time today. How you doing, man?
Man, I am doing fantastic, and I appreciate you introing me like that. I thank you very much, sir.
You put in the work, man. So let's dive into the blueprint, man. What first drew you to boxing? And at what point did you realize that this could be a potential for you to explore?
Yeah. Well, how I first got drawn into boxing was, I suppose I heard stories of my father when I was young. And my mum and dad were amazing, but, you know, we've all got our hiccups, haven't we? When my dad was in and out of jail a few times. So, and he, you know, the environment probably wasn't the best, but he done really well to improve himself, you know, and he started to actually buy and sell businesses. So what we would do, like, there's one time there where, you know, you go to a new town, he would buy businesses that were run down, build them up, and then sell them. So he brought this takeaway food shop, and this is how I got into boxing. I was the new kid in town. I was like 14, got invited to a party and went, and it was an 18th. And I went there, I got drunk and I got beaten up. And I was humiliated, embarrassed, ashamed, and it birthed an anger, a resentment. So for the next couple of years, I was just an angry young man. And eventually when I was 16, my dad said to me, you know, after getting beaten up another time, because I had plenty of heart, I just didn't know how to fight. And he said to me, we'll take you to the gym and teach you how to fight. And I thought, I would love to know how. So he took me to the boxing gym at 16, and I just took to it like duck to water. It was like all that, you know, when I was 16, I was angry, I was rebellious, I was resentful, I was everything, that the school environment tells you not to be. So when I got in the boxing gym, it was almost like, man, it was something I could give my all to, all my grunt, all my effort. So yeah, I just thought, but I remember meeting a guy there in that first couple of months, getting ready for that first fight. His name was Wilfred Jensen, and he was at that particular time the Australian champion. as a welterweight. So I was training, like, I love this guy. I love the way he walked. I love the way he skipped, the way he spoke. Everything about him was like, oh, man. And, so he befriended me. I just trained in vicinity, so I could see him. And I fought for a couple of years as an amateur, But I suppose there was something more in me, and I eventually, my parents had brought another business, like 3,000 kilometres away, and I remember, and it was like, this one was a service station in a caravan park, and I thought, it's got to get away from these men, these mates of mine, because it was like I lived two lives. I had my friends in the boxing gym, and then I'd be winning fights. And my coach would say, have a couple of weeks off, and I'd start drinking. Okay? And those couple of weeks would sometimes last into months, So I thought, I just got to get some new friends, some new mates, we say in Australia. and then when I was at my parents' this caravan park, I met these men from the other side of the world. They were backpacking around Australia from Europe and stuff. So I got this idea in my head, if I went traveling around the world, maybe that would make me into a man. Maybe I would get rid of these hiccups and problems that I'm having, because she's my wife, but then she was my girlfriend, and I didn't know. I was just doing my best, but I was hurting that girl, like my girlfriend, like, we've been together since we were young. She's like the most loyal person I've ever known, but I didn't know how to treat a woman, And so I went traveling. Long story short, man, I nearly hurt myself. I nearly killed myself a few times in Thailand and the Himalayas, and then over in Europe, in Amsterdam, man, I don't even remember half of that journey, I tell you. I ended up back in Australia, and literally what happened was I realised I had a problem with alcohol, and I feel like alcohol was the problem. So I thought, if I put down the alcohol, everything could get better. And I found out I couldn't put it down. I put it down, but I kept picking it back up. Put it down, I go to the gym, then I pick it up again. And I ended up, a whole series of things happened. And I ended up in a meeting for non-drinking. And I'm sitting there and I'm petrified. And I'm thinking I'm a tough guy, and I'm petrified. And this guy comes up to me that he'd known me from the gym, and I never had nothing to do with him, but I knew he was, I knew him. And he was almost like, in an encouraging way, he's like, he poked his fingers in my chest and said, son, because I was a lot younger then, he said, son, there's something in you that only you can fulfill. There's a mission. There's a purpose, And I knew what he meant. And I wanted to be a fighter, but I just didn't know what was missing, So I said to him, what have I got to do? I was at the point, I'll do anything, So he said, don't drink and I'll see you tomorrow. And then we went to the gym and without, long story short, within a short space of time, I started to get opportunities. And then I got a fight on Fox Sports on TV in Australia, and then another one within. So it was literally from getting sober, getting food vouchers from the local church because we didn't have enough to eat, to then 4.5 years later being the Australian champion and owning houses and having kids. It was and a business that accelerated really quick. But what was the key thing that got me there? It was explained to me. It's you've got to be a champion on the inside first. It's an inside job, And so what I was very fortunate, I had some men that started to show me these rites of passages, this transformation from boy to man, and really that's what I believe got me to be a champion of Australia, get me to fight in Canada for a Commonwealth title fight, get me to fight in Germany. But what happened was then I made some oaths along the way. I made some oaths around alcohol, not any, not ever, no negotiation. I made some other oaths around how I treated my wife, how I treated my kids. I made some oaths how I lived. And around that time, I had some good friends. And one man in particular, he committed suicide. And I remember being at his grave and thinking, man, I thought, he was a mentor. He was doing better I thought he was doing better than me, And I remember, praying a prayer, saying an oath to myself, I'm only going to do what I love. Unless my heart is engaged, I ain't doing it, So when I retired, as a fighter, and I did the same thing, I started, all I wanted to do was be with men and train men. I already had a successful business, and I got out of that, and I opened up a gym and literally just started training men to have a fight, and that's where that Fight Like a Pro program come about. So I would get 20, 24 men at a time, and the qualifier was that you'd never had a fight. So imagine I get 20 odd men and train them for 10 weeks, match them all up, and invite all their friends, family, and there'd be 1,000 people at the local casino. It was extremely daunting, knowing that they'd never had a fight, but the crowd loved it. All their friends and family loved it, and I ended up doing that for 10, 11 years. Cause that's all I did. It was big. It was a lot, man, between, 5 or 6 events a year in 10 weeks. They were overlapping, but I learned very quickly in the first couple of years that it became more about who the men needed to become to step through those ropes. If they were worried about what other people were thinking or saying, it didn't work, So it turned into an initiation and validation process, and we just leveraged the boxing, I believe in the DNA of every man is a warrior. We're built for battle, but you're either trained or you're untrained. But when you're trained, what seemed to happen was men become better husbands, better fathers, their self-esteem improved, their businesses started to double or their incomes doubled. They started to become better leaders in the community. We did a thing where we would, for about 4.5 years, where we helped build and service a women's sanctuary, a women's refuge, where they would help over 100 women a year get out of domestic violence and their children, and start to really, all that, the Rite of Passage work to make you a better man. Well, what are you going to do with it? It's about others, serving others. So that's kind of how it come about. And then particularly I wrote that first book because what was happening was men would fly. You imagine if you were fighting in my city, right? But a lot of people on the Gold Coast come from other cities, Melbourne, Sydney, Perth, even New Zealand, and because it's a holiday destination. So what would happen when we would put a Fight like a Pro fight, people would travel from all around Australia. So I would get up normally at interval and do the best motivational speech ever, and then the next men would sign up to the next program. But what would happen was a lot of men couldn't do it because they were in other parts of Australia. They just purely come so that's when what was happening was men were reaching out from other parts of Australia, and I couldn't help them. Yeah, and then sometimes their marriage would fall apart, or their business, or they take their life, or things like that. So that's when through pain, normally pain is a big motivator. So I wrote that first book, The Rite of Passage for the Modern Man. And that's when, and then the pandemic, before the pandemic happened, I just felt like I needed to change things up so I could reach more men, So that's when we put that book online, and it just took off. It just took off. This little Rite of Passage ebook, take an hour to read it and just go through the 7 pillars of what it takes to be a man in this modern world. It's a great book to share it with your sons, with your teenage sons. We have so many men doing that, to be able to, what is a positive conversation between two men, so it's a great leadership tool as well. But then what would happen was men would read the book and say, what's next? And then I'm like, well, read it again. So then all the stories that I would tell in those 10 weeks, I started to put them into videos. And so I could send them videos, and then we made a 10-week online program, not for the boxing, but for becoming a better man, a better husband, a better father, a better son, a better leader. And then of course it went all around Australia and New Zealand, and then it was like the same thing was happening with the boxing program, because men would do the 10-week boxing and say, I can't leave this brotherhood, I can't leave this. So they would end up helping. So I'd get them involved in charities with the Women's Refuge. So the same thing was happening with the men around Australia. So what I did was I made I wrote another book called The Man Alive. So a 21-day kind of program for your mental health, but there's actions and physical stuff to do. But so then I made the mentorship program for the Man Alive experience, which is a 12-month program, which is just taken off now. I mean, it's just amazing. We've got men from New Zealand to Alaska. We've got men all over America and Canada and Europe. I'm actually here at the moment in Malta, in Gozo in the Mediterranean. It's I mean, just what I'm saying is, what happens to men with this Man Alive experience now? I always say life is an epic adventure, or it's not. And as I ended up in the middle of the Mediterranean, 26 miles off of Sicily, 80 miles off of Africa, living a dream. Like we talk about dream, and it takes courage to dream and take action on it. And I suppose that's what we're seeing with men. We're seeing men with this Man Alive experience. Actually, I'm going to say, we're changing the world. We're changing men's worlds. So it's I'm doing a lot of talking now. I hope that's okay. Yeah.
I'm jumping in real quick. Listen, I'm Refocus Radio, watching this online, talking to our guest today, Gavin Lance Topp. And I want to say, all that's great, because you basically took our audience on a movie ride, because I can't help but cut to the scene when you talk about the man that pointed at your chest and said you have something. And from that moment, you took us on this journey of all these amazing stories. I think that's very powerful, because what I also see very good in your story is that you mentioned about you had to change friends.
Yeah.
And that changed, I would say, opened up some new doors. Kind of touch on that with the audience, because from your perspective, you were in awesome opportunity to grow, especially as an athlete. And not only did you get to a high level that is respectable, but you had to make some tough decisions that could have hindered you.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I was talking with a group of our men in the Man Alive experience. They've been through the Rite of Passage. Now they've gone on to the Man Alive experience. Whereas one of the things we talk about often is, how do you go when it comes to saying no and saying yes? Because some men are saying yes to the things they really mean no. And they get them around the wrong way, you know. And I say, like I'm always saying to the men, every opportunity, because there's so many opportunities these days. I mean, everywhere, worldwide, man. There's nowhere where you can't go or can't be, man. It's amazing, you know. And but the thing is, every opportunity is not a good opportunity for me or for you unless it aligns with your mission, your dreams, the things that live inside you. You know, because as I've gone along in what we're putting a few thousand men through this 12-month program over the last few years, and really digging deep. You know, one of the things that we do, we go through your values, your gifts, your talents, and when we get into your purpose, a lot of men will say, you know what, they've actually known what they've wanted to do their whole life since they were boys. And I'm a faith man. I believe there's things put inside every man and woman, you know, but ideally men, although I do have 5 daughters. I've got 5 daughters and 2 sons. We've got 7 kids. So I love women more than anything, of course. But, you know, dealing with men, I believe in the heart of every man is a purpose, is a mission. We are all designed for something unique. You know, so it's a massive mistake to compare yourself to anybody. You know, and I've still got it back home in Australia, but I have this sign that I used to hang in the bathroom. So when men would go to the toilet, they'd be looking at this sign and it said, be yourself, everyone else is taken. And that's what we've got to do. You know, and that's probably one of the amazing things I loved about boxing, and particularly with men that you were testing them, testing their strength. You know, what was said to me by a great coach, there's 3 men inside every man. There's the man I tell you I am, there's the man I think I am, and then there's the guy who lives inside. And that's the guy you got to make your friend. You know, the one who lives inside you, you're the only one who know him. And of course, if we're comparing ourselves to others, comparing our dreams to other people's dreams, you know, we're going to be in for a long, hard march, you know. So, you know, one of the reasons, an oath that I made a long time ago said, I love my wife more than anything, and she's, you know, just absolutely amazing. We've been together since we were teenagers, you know, and you know, supported me for like an 18-year boxing career, everything I've done, you know. And I made an oath a few years back that, you know, I wanted her dreams to come true. You know, that was an oath. I always wanted for her to pursue. And that's why we ended up here in the middle of the Mediterranean. Her father was Maltese, hadn't been here for 70 years, but it was her dream to come here, you know, to like, outside of my office here, there's a fortified city, 3,500 years old. Like, this country is amazing. Yeah, so there's this island, it's only like 8 kilometres long. There's all these villages. I wanted my children to experience what it was like to live in a village where 11:30 all the shops shut till 4 o'clock. Everyone goes and has a sleep, you know. I wanted to experience what that was like. So, man, we've got to follow our dreams. But I think for a lot of men, they reach levels and they achieve certain things and then plateau. Where I'm saying, man, every person listening, there's more in you than what you realise. There's more in you than what you think. And I mean, one of the ways I was able to, you know, when I'd done that Fight Like a Pro boxing experience, I've got a great property. I suppose in America we call it a ranch, okay, a little ranch back home. And with all the lockdowns and what have you, I would, in my property, I set the boxing ring up in the middle of a paddock. You know, set up there of a night time, I'd invite 100, 150 men. We'd light fires around the outside and we'd turn it into a fight club. And just where men could test themselves. And what I would do, obviously safety is the most important, but what's even more important than that is that you get to have a look at your strength, how good you are. So obviously evenness is the most important thing. But what I began to do with that, because men would finish a 3-round fight and there was more in them. So what I started to do was do 2 rounds, and then the 3rd round, there wouldn't be a finishing bell. We would go until your best would come out. And what we found with that, men discovered there was so much more in them. So after a couple of rounds, they were exhausted. But then when they take away the limitation or the boundary or the barrier, men would be fighting 2-minute rounds, be exhausted. The last round would go 10 minutes long. And we'd stop and say, man, there's just 2 winners here. So I would say to our listeners, there's more in you. There's a bigger dream in you. But the dream that is in front of you, pursue that like your life depends upon it. Because I would say it actually does. Every man's going to die, but not every man's going to live. And I think that's what those dreams that have been put inside us for, to develop ourselves, to sharpen ourselves against the hardship so we get ready for those dreams. For me, it's all about legacy. I want to leave, and we can, like what you are doing, you great man, making these podcasts. This is going to be around for hundreds of years. I believe we're doing things that our children's children will benefit from. I mean, that inspires me. Does that not inspire you?
I love it. I mean, everything you're saying, I'm like, I can just eat some popcorn and just keep watching like I'm watching. This sounds like a Netflix special right here in the making. But what I would say in response, because I know we got to wrap it up pretty soon, is that's why this show exists. People always ask me all the time. I probably get the same question every time I interview someone that I never met before, and they say, man, how did you start? Where did you start? And for our audience, I know I say this 10,000 times, but I'll make it very short. We started in a barbershop in 2017. The owner, funny enough, he's a former boxer in Philadelphia. He did some time, turned his life around, came to San Antonio to start his barbershop. I met him through a colleague, and because at the time, 2012, I had a magazine called Refocus Magazine. So speed up to 2017. Here I am, coming in story for a former boxer, Rico Rodriguez, owner of Rockefeller's Barbershop. Long story short, shut down the magazine, too expensive to run. And he was like, Shemai, he said, you got a voice for radio, man. Like, you got a talent, man. You better start using something. You better do something. You better do voiceovers for cartoons or something, man. Like, you just got to do something. And I said, all right, I'll do the show if you do it with me. That's the dude. And he one-upped me better. He said, you do the show. I'll let you use my barbershop as the venue. And I'll pay for the breakfast. And I'll pay for the food, the drinks and the food. So all that stuff. I said, done deal. So that very first episode is on our website, on our About page. Because just like you had someone pointing finger on your chest and say you had more. You see the thing? That barbershop owner did the same. And to this day, we are still supporting each other. I call him the founder, supporter for the whole platform. Like, he birthed everything. We didn't have video. We didn't have a website. We had 2 mics and a cheap USB back in the day. And now we speed up. We're on the 12th floor with nice microphones, lights, and all this stuff. And it's just crazy. Just like your story is a common thread. Something had to move.
Yep.
Because even at the barbershop, we had people coming to the shop and they were just coming to listen. So we had to tell people, bring a friend so they get a haircut, because I'm not trying to abuse the venue.
I love it.
Man, because we had an issue where it wasn't enough chairs because people were coming to listen to the show. And I still listen to some of the old episodes because it's kind of cool that you hear clippers in the background. It almost sound like a movie or something, like on, I'm not going to say names for legal purposes, but it's like, it is a ride. And when you really hold on to your why, your dream, I tell people all the time, when you hold on to your dream holds on to you. Because as you are developing, you have no choice but to have personal development, because where you're going, challenges are part of the promotion.
Yeah.
And there's no way around it. Like, every season has a challenge, but you have to get through it to get to that next promotion. And promotion is not what some people think. It's not promotion for that. It's promotion for maybe stability, for peace, for mental growth. Like, having the ability to be stretched is more powerful than staying and remaining the same. If I remain the same in the barbershop, I wouldn't be talking to you right now.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're talking to me. You make me happy.
I appreciate that. But that's basically like a fast forward story of what the show is about. And what you just did is what it's truly about. And that is helping our viewer and our listener to discover we're pointing a finger at your chest now.
Yeah.
A guy who made it happen in boxing world and teaching and writing books. You can be that too. A guy who went to the barbershop and had 2 microphones and a cheap, all caps, cheap USB mixer. Now we're reaching worldwide audience. Now we're in all 50 states. Now we have icons, you know, and I'd say to people, they're just human beings. I just have the honor and privilege to have their time. You know, there's a reason why I close the show and tell people thank you for your time. Because the more I grew into the show, the more I had to grow. And I'm still growing. Like, if you think you learn it all, it's time to retire, because that's the end of your time.
Yeah.
But if you always think there's something else I could do better, I can mature in, surround yourself with smarter people, what happens is, and this is from experience, they force you to level up, because it's hard to walk down with your head down. You got people who are forcing you to level up, straighten up, and go. Yeah. Because if you don't go, all that's lip service, and it's a way. You can read anybody's book and still not be better. That's right. It's when you actually start writing your own story, start making new chapters, and you still get up. Had a guy just before you, he said, in order for his business to grow, he said he had to understand what came with his business was a personal development plan. And he said if he didn't engage in that plan, his business was absent. That's right. There was no growth. There was no change until he changed. Yeah. I'm like, man, you just gave me a master class. And that's why I do what I do. Yeah. So good. So good. And I suppose for the listeners, because I think it's one of the things for particularly men, like I said, fathers and sons, if you go to Gavin Topp, GavinTopp.com, and you'll see the Rite of Passage for the Modern Man ebook. I purposely made that book a small book so that men would finish it. and I think, mate, I would love, I'm just thinking listeners that are reaching out, if maybe we can put your podcast, put your name in it, and I can give them extra things. I'd love to do that, you know. So how can I serve, man? I want to serve more men, you know. I want to serve more husbands and fathers. So I want to say massive thank you for having me here today. Once again, talking to our guest today, Gavin Lance Topp. Make sure you go get the book. It is going to be in the show notes, and make sure you share this episode. Share it with another guy out there. And don't ever forget this. You was watching, listening. Your dream is on you. Yeah. It ain't on nobody else, man. It's on you. You have to decide, I'm going for it. So I hope whoever's watching, this will inspire you to start and go. Because if you don't finish, it becomes a bad habit. Yeah. So quitting is not an option. So that said, I want to say to you, Gavin, thank you for your time, man. Oh, man, my absolute pleasure. More than welcome. I've had a lot of fun. Thank you to everyone who's listening.